Good evening, everyone. We'll get started, and we'll rise for a moment of personal reflection. Thank you. May I ask Councillor Gardner to lead us in the singing of the national anthem?
O Canada, our home and native land, to great is love in all our sons' command. Quand s'est porté les filles, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. Comme Cavalan, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. When you hit those last few notes, you lose me. Beautiful, thank you.
I lose myself too.
I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathering on the traditional territory of the Mohawk people of Akwesasne. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Bernadette Clément,
Présent.
Councillors Claude McIntosh, Elaine McDonald,
Present.
Sid Gardner,
Ici.
Dean Hollingsworth,
Present.
Caroline Hébert,
Présente.
Councillors Todd Bennett,
Present.
Justin Towndale,
Present.
and Éric Bergeron.
Présent.
We have regrets from Councillors Dupel and Grant, Madam Mayor.
Any additions, deletions, or amendments? Madam Clerk, do you have
I
any?
do not have any additions, but I do want to note that on Friday, we revised the agenda
Mhm.
to include a third presentation this evening, and so it was published on Friday.
And that would be Dr. Paul Rumiliotis.
That is correct.
Okay. We need adoption of the agenda as amended. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Hébert, any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Any disclosures of interest? Councillor Towndale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's an item under communication reports for a road closure request. It's from SAS. I currently sit on the board. I'm actually on the Walk a Mile in Your Shoes committee, so I'll be stepping back for that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to go into committee of the whole. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Gardner, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. We have adoption of minutes. So we had many, many meetings in February, and February is not over yet. So the following minutes are being presented for adoption: February 3rd, February 4th, February 5th, and February 10th. So a lot of those meetings were for our budget. So I need a motion to adopt those minutes. Councillor Bennett and Councillor Hollingsworth. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
So our first presentation this evening is Dr. Paul, as you mentioned, and that is an update on the NAV Centre's quarantine.
So welcome to Council, Dr. Paul Rumiliotis from the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. We're very happy to have you here. Thank you for attending on short notice. I find it important that you be here and that you be able to brief everyone, but also Council in particular. And so, welcome.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. Bonsoir tout le monde. I'm going to start by giving you a bit of a historical background of how we ended up today and how we first started with the story, and then I'm going to talk to you about some of the messaging that I've been actually quoted nationally on in terms of trying to, clarify rumors and sort of set the situation straight. So first of all, I found out last Saturday. My colleagues from Ontario called me and said that NAV Centre would be receiving, and I said, well, okay, let's get the details, and maybe tomorrow I'll do a site visit. But unbeknownst to me, they published that evening, they had a press release and actually said that they're coming to Cornwall. And so that took us a bit off stride. I'm not surprised that they chose Cornwall, the NAV Centre, because as you know, we've hosted many types of large number of evacuees. So I wasn't surprised at that, but I was really surprised that they They announced it without us even getting to do a site visit. So I spoke to the mayor, and the next morning, I visited the site and ascertained indeed that there is a separable building. It is, quarantine is possible in that. That's what I ascertained. Safe quarantine is possible, separate building, separate ventilation, and so on. Before, as a backdrop to that, I just want to say that I was made aware of this COVID 2019 now on December 31st, on New Year's Eve. We had an email from the Chief Medical Officer of Health saying that they'd had 59 cases of pneumonia that clustered out of a Wuhan animal market. And so, you know, we sort of knew about it. January 10th, we said that we started seeing the numbers go up. We sent a memo to our hospitals around saying, you know, if you have any patient that shows up that had traveled recently to this part of China, please ensure you call us, take the necessary precautions, because we're not even sure what's going on, but we know there's a cluster. Very quickly afterwards, we found that it was this new novel coronavirus, and they've changed the name. The coronavirus family is very common. We see it as the common cold. This one came from animals, probably bats, we're not sure, and they mutate, and then they're able to infect humans. And they're called novel viruses because they've never infected humans before, and they inherit the potential to infect one another. One human to another. Usually animal viruses, if they infect a human being, they just stop there. They don't go anywhere else. But they mutate, and that's why they become novel. And they're novel because we've never seen them before. So our body doesn't have any immune memory, if you like. So then it overwhelms, like any other cold, like the flu, more the elderly, more people with underlying chronic medical conditions, and usually children. And in this situation, it actually spares children. It's more elderly and people with underlying medical issues. 83% have minimal to no symptoms, like a cold, but these, 17% are suffering and having complications of it, which, by the way, we will see if any individual who's 85 years old, has multiple medical conditions, gets a cold, will suffer, may die, may have pneumonia or the flu. So that's not new to us. The novelty is, though, that many people are not immune to it yet. There's no treatment and there's no vaccine, so that's why these things spread so quickly. So at that time, we really revved up our monitoring. That's what public health does, revving up the monitoring, working with our partners, EMS, ambulance, and so on, and keeping them updated. And then, we started getting, first case, second case in Ontario, which were expected because there were people coming back from that area. But still, at that point, I was quoted, and I had written in the freeholder that the risk is low in our area, and the risk remains low today. We've never had a case, including over the weekend. We've never had any cases here. So that's the backdrop. So then going back to visit the quarantine headquarters, completely separated building, like an ideal situation if you were to ask, if you were to do it in an area. Now, we ascertained as well that no NAV Center employee is going to go into the area. This is going to be fully manned, like it was in Trenton. Don't forget there was a Trenton operation, and the Trenton operation was full. That's why they didn't go to Trenton. The Trenton operation had Red Cross workers, Army, PHAC workers, Public Health Agency workers, and the Emergency Management Medical Assistant Team, which is like a MASH unit from Ontario. They were all on site, provided services, tested everybody, and none of them to date, actually they were released today, the second quarantine, developed any illnesses. Now these individuals came from China, from the Wuhan area. They were not on the cruise ship. So then we have this other cohort with a cruise ship coming to Cornwall, and then in terms of the quarantine, like I said, I just want to go back to that. I want to stipulate that the quarantine, like I said, there's no ventilation connection. It's completely walled off. It's actually a tunnel that leads to it, which is an ideal place because usually we want to have a clean space to change and mask and so on. It's a respiratory droplet. It's not respiratory spread. It's respiratory droplet. So, for example, if I have a virus, I'm speaking now, or I can cough, it's available during the day, and now there's going to be overnight